So our theme this month is believing our way to greater possibilities. And today's topic is, what do I believe and what don't I believe? Certainly the world around us and the world within us has been an example of that very thing over the past several weeks. What do I believe is happening, and what should I not believe? Here's a quote that kind of addresses that, a statement that may describe what any one of us has been experiencing periodically. So here's the quote. There are known knowns. There are things we know we know. We also know there are known unknowns. That is to say, we know there are some things we do not know. But there is also unknown unknowns. The ones we don't know, we don't know. Well, when I read that, it brought a smile to my face. Actually, I burst out laughing. Like, that certainly expresses any given moment right now, doesn't it? But that statement was offered during a press conference at NATO headquarters in Belgium in June of 2002 by the then U.S. Secretary of Defense, Ronald Rumsfeld, describing the status of intelligence and information gathering in a post-9/11 world. In other words, Rumsfeld was saying that we don't have all of the information, and we know that we don't have it. While this now famous speech was directed toward American intelligence gathering for the world on, let me read that again, please. While this now famous speech was directed toward American intelligence gathering for the war on terror, the same might be said of the state of scientific knowledge or its expression today. So, is this comic relief? Is this a statement of some things that will just never change? Could it be an expression of the collective consciousness? What do I believe about the state of the world right now? Right here, right now. And what don't I believe? But more importantly, I think, is what do I believe is the positive outcome of this current global challenge? Hence this month's theme for these talks, believing our way to greater possibilities. Because we know and understand that the collective consciousness includes both negative and positive thoughts, ideas, fears, and beliefs. Ernest Holmes in the Science of Mind text has a chapter titled Man's Relationship to the Spiritual Universe. And when he says man, he means mankind, humankind. And in that chapter, he addresses the collective consciousness. Before I share the details of that, though, I want to emphasize his words expressing our relationship to the spiritual universe. He reminds us that whatever is true of the universe as a whole must also be true of each individual as some part of this whole. What we call the human being is a self-conscious, thinking center of the living spirit, and as such must, in his or her nature and being, reproduce the universe. Holmes goes on to say that the whole of spirit, meaning God, is potentially focused in our individual objective consciousness, though some have really not yet evolved to a realization of that. He stresses that the soul, which we often refer to as our essence, is the mirror of the mind in the individual, and that we grow as we accumulate the right kind of experiences. And by right, he means positive. So our soul, or our essence, individually contains a record of every experience which has happened to us. This record is what constitutes the subjective tendencies of each of us individually. These tendencies, however, can be changed through constant efforts and determined persistence of purpose. And it's those tendencies of each of us, the spiritual beings, having a human experience that creates the soul life of the human race. And that is called collective consciousness. Well, that's a bit heavy, but I share that with you in order to emphasize the importance of making a positive contribution to the collective consciousness. Hold on with me for just a minute so I can extend our time. I've got a message from Zoom to do that. All right. Thank you all for your patience. And Zoom as well. They are overloaded, and I know what that feels like today. But I'm glad you waited so that we can continue on with this talk. So what I said to you just before I departed the screen and had to swim my way back is that those tendencies of each of us, the spiritual beings having a human experience, that creates the soul life of the human race. And that's why it's called collective consciousness. So that's a bit heavy, but I share that with you in order to emphasize the importance of our making a positive contribution to that collective consciousness. And this is true whoever you are and wherever you are on your spiritual journey, which is something most of you are already aware of, that I say each Sunday morning at our regular services. And although most of you listening to this talk today have chosen metaphysics as your spiritual path and have focused on the processes in the science of mind to guide you, that is not the only way. Many religions and spiritual teachings embrace those principles. Many philosophies herald the spiritual growth and illumination of humans embracing and exercising their spirituality. But the underlying message here this morning, for those of you who it's still morning, some of you I'm sure it's in the afternoon, even late afternoon, is to develop and maintain a positive, life-affirming belief system that honors and supports you and the world around you. Could you mute, please? Thank you. And that doesn't mean telling everybody to do what you say or do. It's knowing their highest and best good for them, whatever they choose that to be. Personally, I believe that given their choice, most people would choose to be healthy. Personally, I believe that given their choice, most people would choose to be happy. Personally, I believe that given their choice, most people would choose to be safe. And personally, I believe that given their choice, most people would choose to be at peace. I also believe that what Secretary Rumsfeld said about the knowns and unknowns is a current condition. We don't have all of the information related to the physical health of the world's population, and we know that we don't know it. However, what we do know, because we've demonstrated it in our own lives, is that believing our world to greater possibilities can and does work. Neither you nor I have been on this planet for its whole existence, but both you and I can recognize it has survived a plethora of unknowns, and that life here for us in 2020 is much better than 5,000 years ago, 1,000 years ago, probably even 100 years ago. I can believe that. Can you? I can believe that our world population recovers from this current challenge. Can you? I can believe that our world population that has seen many depart this world during this challenge. I can believe that those who have eternal life, and that their soul, their essence, has moved on to another level of consciousness. Can you? And I believe that for some who are listening to this talk today, and perhaps you don't yet believe one or more of the things that I just said. And if that's so, in the present moment, I honor your candidness in recognizing that you have doubts, you have fears, you're skeptical or hesitant to buy in on this. And I offer you some ways to address that if you choose. The first is that I repeat what I said earlier in this talk about collective consciousness. Our soul or essence individually contains a record of every experience which has happened to us. This record is what constitutes the subjective tendencies of each of us. These tendencies, however, can be changed through constant efforts and determined persistence of purpose. So understanding that what is in our subconscious is what generates those thoughts, those fears, that skepticism and hesitancy to try something different. And if you have a connection with a spiritual center, church, or religious affiliation, speak with a minister or a spiritual leader to support you in changing what you don't believe into what you can believe that is possible, that is positive, that is uplifting, and is life-affirming. And if, for any reason, there are some of you who are unaffiliated with a church or a spiritual center, please go online to our website, which is CSLWH.org. So you can send me an email from that website or a text to the phone number that's there. And when you do, just reference this talk and its greater possibilities. So now the big question, what can I do? And that's what remains this morning from this talk, to address what each one of us can do individually to support the healing of this planet. Many of you, I know, are already engaged in many activities in your communities and in surrounding communities. So let us know what those are so that we can circulate that out to others. And if additional help is needed in those activities, if you'll send me that information by email, we'll circulate it through our email system. Or if you're looking for a way to participate in some of these activities, let me know that by email so we can circulate that as well. And if you're not on our email list, and there may be one or two of you this morning who are not currently, but were referred to this Zoom meeting by a friend or a relative, first, be sure you send them love for doing that so that you could be with us this morning. And then go onto our website or check with them and send us an email or a text with your email address so we can put you on our circulation list, because we're sending out notices of resource materials, of peace meditation participation, of setting up online chat rooms for book reviews and midweek gatherings, and then all of that will be available to you as well. So finally, expanding my what do I believe? As I mentioned in yesterday's email, for those of you who received it, two of the resources being used for the talks this month are Bruce Lipton's Spontaneous Evolution and Greg Braden's Spontaneous Healing of Belief. Catchy titles, yeah? both addressing spontaneous. So most of you on here this morning know me. We will now have a lesson with the dictionary. Spontaneous is defined as performed or occurring as a result of an inner impulse or inclination and without premeditation or external stimulus. So can our beliefs be evolved or healed spontaneously? These two well-known authors are worth your time, your effort, and your money to strengthen your belief system about health, about happiness, about safety, peace, and anything else that improves your life in a positive way and at no one else's expense. In Braden's book, there are a list of 31 belief codes. They're placed specifically throughout the chapters, and they are collectively listed in the chapter titled A User's Guide to the Universe. They're positive statements which keep us in the what do I believe mode. Greg describes it this way. It's through your actions that you see you're caring about life itself. So I invite you to work with your belief systems and your belief codes. Read these codes, each one, and ponder it. Discuss it. Share it. Live it until it makes sense to you. Together, these steps can become your consciousness program for changing yourself and your world. You may have some of your own that you would like to add to this list after you read his and work with those as well. So in closing, let me share with you one of his belief codes. Your beliefs have the power to change the flow of events in the universe, literally to interrupt and redirect time, matter, and space, and the events that occur within them. And so it is.
And so it is.
So as I've been doing each week as these talks come to a close, I've been reading an excerpt from Raymond Charles Barker's book on Power of Decision, and this is in his chapter on health. There is one source, one cause, one life, and one mind. This is God. My health and well-being are this one life, functioning freely in me, as me. I praise this health. I rejoice in this health. I am this health, which is spiritual, perfect, and free. No guilt or fear in my subconscious mind can interrupt or affect this health. I declare its permanency, even as I know that the spirit within me is permanent. And so it is. So thank you all so very much for your patience this morning. Obviously, this is still a learn and deliver process for me. And Arliss, if you're still on, I want to thank you so much for your coaching and your assistance and your wisdom. And if you're not, I'll send that to you in a text as soon as we're finished here. So
go ahead, me in a text either way, because I didn't get it written down fast enough.
Well, I didn't write it down either, but I'll do my best to recall it. And speaking of Arliss, I did hear from her with regard to her interest in our doing a book review Zoom. And since we have bought infinite time, we can add that to our weekly Zoom meetings, should we choose. And the book that she indicated she was interested in was the Greg Braden book, which is Spontaneous Healing of Belief. I hope that doesn't look backward to you. It does to me. But in any event, if you are interested in doing a book review on that, it's a fascinating book, and this is the one that has the truth codes in it that you might be interested in developing. So there's Tina. I would be interested in the book. She is our book specialist. What she doesn't find in somebody else's bookshelf and buy or have it gifted to her, she goes out and gets for herself. So truly, this book and the one from Bruce Lipton with Spontaneous Evolution are so in tune with what's happening here on planet Earth these days that I think you'll find them eye-opening, if not really deeply usable for you. So, any comments or questions? I thank you so much for your patience. I've kept you on a long time today, and I'd apologize for that, except I think you were really smart to stay. So, comments?
If anybody doesn't have the Greg Braden book and would be interested in listening